All right, so a round of applause for our next speakers. They will be talking about LLMOps for eval-driven development at scale. So, how's it going? While we're waiting for the slides,
Right.
how's your experience? Were you stuck in traffic?
No, almost. So is this thing on? Okay, yes, no, almost actually. So I got really lucky where my Grab driver actually canceled on me. He's like, it's too much traffic. Find someone else. So I was forced to take the train and got here on time. So
Okay.
opposite experience.
Thank you. A round of applause for someone who has beat Bangkok traffic.
What about you, JD?
Yeah, I took it early. But
Okay, so he was smart in
take the
both
train.
ways.
Yes. Thank you. So without any further delay, your slides are on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mashari. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So
Amazing stuff so far. I'm so looking forward to all the sessions, except this one.
I'm Teo. This is JD. We're on Mercari's AI LLM team. And I guess we're going to be going into a little bit more technical of a topic for the morning. This one is, again, sorry. This one is, hopefully this is better. This one is LLMOps for eval-driven development at scale. Not as unapproachable as it sounds. I'll get into that in a second. Before that, I wanted to start off with a quick intro and then what Gen AI development actually looks like, what it means to develop at scale. And also, I'm going to hand it off to JD at that point where he can get into the details of how we at Mercari are doing LLM, GenAI specifically. And then we're going to go into what LLMOps for the two major demographics we've identified in, closer? Good? Better? Louder. So both closer and louder. Okay. So everyone always tells me I'm really loud, so maybe I'm being too meek. So I'll go like back to normal. I'll be really, really loud. Mari, good? Even better? Louder. Okay. Okay. So then we're going to get into LLMOps for developers and SMEs, which we've identified in hindsight are the most important people, SMEs specifically, right? Because we all have Gen AI apps for different use cases. And so we wanted to emphasize that LLM Ops isn't just for developers, it's for the whole team. And then finally, in keeping with the theme of the conference, is open source, evals at scale, even past this company. What does that look like in connection with the broader community? And so a quick introduction of Mercari specifically. We are Japan's largest C2C e-commerce marketplace. We have about 1 in 4 adults in Japan are on our marketplace app. And we have over 13 years of existence, over 3 billion items in our catalog at this point. And just last year alone, again, for scale, of what we mean by scale, is that we moved about $6.5 billion in merchandise across our platform in just the last year alone. And so now, what is Gen AI at scale? In general, before I get into that, let's talk about Gen AI development specifically. And so it's really similar to classic machine learning, where you have 3 primary components. So you have a model. In this case, because most people aren't foundation model building companies, we usually think of like the fine-tuned model that is developed and released to everybody else, whether that's through API or open weights or things like that. And so again, it's OpenAI, Anthropic, or maybe your own custom fine-tuned model locally. It all doesn't matter. As long as you have a model out there, this is what we think of when we say the model aspect. And then data. And so data, again, traditionally for classic machine learning, it's like what goes into the model to make the model good, to train it, essentially. Since the model's already trained, when we say data, we mean more of like what goes in at inference time. So things like user input, few-shot prompting, some examples we give in the prompt to ground the model output, in addition to some dynamic like RAG-based document retrieval. And then we have evaluation. Again, not at training time, but at evaluation time, inference time. You have manual judgments, what the community calls these days vibe checks, where you look at it, feels right, and then you have something that's a little more automated and standardized, where you can use an LLM to codify these judgments and run them at scale on large data sets. And then you have automated metrics, which are things that are a little faster to run. And all of 3 of these things, JD will get into in more detail in his section of the talk. And so a good way of looking at it is with those 3 dimensions. A lot of people take these different approaches to developing with AI. You have the model-centric approach, which is the classic approach. In Gen AI development of taking like a prompt, like prompt engineering, and saying, with what I can give to the model, how can I make the output better? And then you also have the data side. So, okay, let's just pretend I have a really good prompt. What data can I put in? How can I build a better RAG system in order to make my model have, or I guess my application output better output? And then you have evaluations, which are usually considered at the very end. But our thesis really is that LLM development, GenAI development, really hinges on eval-centric development because, as alluded to earlier, if I'm changing things to make the application better, how do I know it's better without good evals? And good evals really depends on what your specific problem is. And so really, this is where you need to spend a lot of your time up front. And it's because of the fact, I'm sure everyone has seen this, GenAI is really easy to demo, but it's hard actually in our experience to productionize. And so we didn't want something where it looks good to us, we ship it, and then it sells something in our marketplace on behalf of our users for $1, maybe 100 baht each. This isn't something that we wanted. And the thing is, too, evals are an enabler, right? It helps you build, when you build evals, you're essentially building the thing that helps you build the thing. So with these general reasoning models, these general capability models, evals will help you make sure that you're fine-tuning it exactly for your problem at hand. And with LLMOps specifically, you need LLMOps to do eval-centric AI at scale, but let's not mystify it for the audience here. It's not like anything more than the processes, tools, workflows, practices to iterate faster with higher quality. And so again, whatever that looks like, it could be different for your team. We'll show you what that looked like for us. But at the end of the day, just the things that help you to move faster with great quality. Because when you move faster, then you can succeed. So the great Kamal Hussein, one of the preeminent people in the field right now in evals, likens it to classic software engineering, like test-driven development. LLM development's the same thing, GenAI. If you have good evals, you can iterate quickly. And if you can iterate quickly, then you can succeed. And you need these LLMOps tools and processes for evals, for debugging. And this is just to know what went wrong, where, and how. And also, again, finally, changing the behavior, improving the behavior of the system, ideally. The problem is most people get excited. They focus on just improving the system directly. And that usually is the blocker from going to good demo to really strong product. And then our conjecture and our experience is that doing all of these things is really a virtuous feedback cycle. And if you start with evals, then it streamlines the whole process and everything just becomes really, really easy. And so with that being said, I'm going to move off to how we specifically at Mercari did this. JD?
Can you hear me, guys, I think? Yeah. So I'm going to try to speak really close to the mic. So if I'm loud, say, that's very Japanese, dame, too loud. So yeah, thanks for the great introduction and point, Eval-centric AI. And let's try to talk more specifically about LLMOps at Mercari. I'm going to try to convince you about what Teo said, because when Teo said it, I read it in the same way and said Eval-centric AI, evals. It didn't make sense to me, but it does. So I'm going to try to convince you it makes sense, it works, and it's easy. So let's start with, okay, too close. So let's start with what we think LLMOps are. It's this one. So yeah, what we have come to understand about LLMOps is like 4 key components. Definitely an LLM, which we have little to no control over, proprietary, fine-tuning, open source as well. We have one or more prompts, not necessarily in the same proportion as, a single application could have 20 prompts, and with that associated with, 20 evals each, you can easily say the prompt is the most worked upon or component in this case. We have the access to knowledge, and of course API connectors. So yeah, let's keep our focus on the prompts. And so in the same context of what we think LLMOps are, let's talk about what we're doing at Mercari as well. So as soon as the ChatGPT movement hit, we started with the same thing that I think everybody else started with, create a chatbot. Yeah, create a chatbot for sellers, create a chatbot for buyers, try to do everything through that. It didn't work, obviously. Yeah, we know listing was a pain point for us. we did try to use LLMs for listing, metadata abstraction. There's a great write-up on it on the Mercari engineering blog. Please check it. Dev assist, RAG. So we have agents. We have essentially all kinds of applications that are composed of the components that I mentioned about. Some actually composed of all the components. But specifically, to make a point, let's talk about the AI listing support. And the reason for it is it was the most successful one. And you might be wondering, what components does this AI listing support has? I think I need more references to in Japan, in press in Japan, that this was hugely popular, hugely loved, very good KPIs. But what's at the back of AI listing support? Okay, of course. Yeah, I forgot. So let's like what AI listing support looks like. So just select some photos that you already took and select a category that was suggested by other ML models, and bam. You get a good, nice title description. Price was suggested by another ML model that we already used. And let's talk about what's at the back of AI listing support. It's a single prompt. I guess everybody except me is easy to believe. It's a single prompt. It's complicated, it's long, and legal told me that, okay, this is okay to use. But so let's try to walk through, what it has. It has input of images and a category, specifically from, and it outputs title, description, and item attributes through function calling and through a very detailed system prompt. And as I already noted, this is very successful, very well received by customers, good KPIs. It's simple. It's also expensive. It's costing us, should I tell, 50,000? 50, okay, lot of money. And what the key point is, Mercari has lots of data. We have good data. We have good data practices, hopefully. And so we were able to do this. But it wasn't straightforward. And how we reached to this first version, I was hoping I had a laser pointer here, and this is the credit of two awesome engineers on our team. And so, of course, we start like everyone, ad hoc, create a prompt. Simple, no debates there. But try with 10, 20, 30 examples, get to a point you're okay, share with other developers, get more feedback, type prompt engineering techniques, scoring, tree, etc., graph. And when you're there, we were stuck. Okay, we think it's a good prompt. Our developers think it's a good prompt. But what do stakeholders think? They don't want legal issues. I think Teo showed a good example. Mercari, Japan has very good reputation of, these are important stuff. We could get in legal trouble as well. So anyways, we had to go ahead at that time, even though we searched through open source technologies, we had to build a custom in-house tool to gather this feedback. Google Sheets wasn't cutting it. So this is credit to other engineers again. And through that tool, it looks simple. It would be enough, but not enough, actually. We built a custom tool very specific to the purpose. We had to, plan surveys, schedule input, output, survey dates, and etc. We gathered feedback from all the stakeholders, and then at the end of the day, there was one guy or a couple of guys shifting through that feedback that was very subjective. Between our team and between the company stakeholders, we couldn't agree on what is a good description. That was the key question. What is a good description for this item? It's a very hard question. I wouldn't still bet on it. But anyways, thankfully we had confidence in our A/B testing practices and release and KPIs. We have mature KPIs. We went ahead and released it, and boom, it was a success. And there's a lot to unpack here that went behind this. There's not nearly enough time. But, and so it also doesn't demonstrate how difficult was moving from 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 and 3 to 5, 4 to 5, etc., etc. But we realized we need to scale. And then we tried researching, and we come across something like this, which is, I guess, pretty old. And when I read this, it didn't make sense to me. The passion in it doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense to me now. I really understand the statement. It's very deep. Because evals will let you scale. Evals and tools. And you will make more about it. But, so, I don't know if people are interested, but I try to demonstrate by simple examples how we can evaluate a good description. Example number 1, you see on the top left a possible description. Again, we cannot debate it's a good description, but there's a customer written description. People know what this product is. You don't need much details, just the main points. And we will still debate that it's a good description or not. And so how to really start? Statistical models that we already have, Blue, Rogue, length less than 40, good measure, is still speaking Japanese. The prompt is written in English, it's still speaking Japanese. Does some change make it to Japanese? Similarity to user descriptions. Start here. I'm not saying it will make sense now. I think most people don't select your LLMs at the very start, but after the main suggestion from experts is choose a good LLM, foundation model, and then come back to the prompt. And I would say, and then you will go back and choosing to the LLM again. But I don't think this is the same thing. You need to put these heuristics in. They will make sense later. Cool? And this is a nice diagram from 1DB. Example number 2. Again, keeping it simple. We don't have much time. Wow, what's the product description? I don't know if you guys, what do you guys say? Would you write a description of the brand when you're selling the product? Okay, this is jeans from Levi's, and Levi's is this great brand that existed for centuries, and I don't know, originated where? I don't think so. But this was gathered through domain-specific feedback that this is one of the problems in our prompt, that it was overtly descriptive of the brand. So here's an example of a GEval metric that we wrote. And if you see, this is not the first version that we wrote, but we just asked it not to mention the brand, but not explain it. And what it ended up doing is it started indirectly praising the brand. It did not mention the brand, but it indirectly praised it. Also, it started going into the country of origin and talking about the country of origin. That is surprising. It was surprising for us. So yeah, so eval based on G-eval, write what you want, scoring prompt, and iterate on that as well. Eval number 3, LLM is judge, very popular, I guess. People know about it, how to use LLMs to score. I won't repeat what I've said, but in this case, here's an example of comparing with your previous data. We had lots of data. We were testing different versions. It makes sense when you compare it with different data, what you previously output, you iterate on it. And here's an interesting one, more interesting one. So we had we were trying to optimize the prompt for a specific category, like trading cards. Does anybody like trading cards? Okay. So, liar, you don't know anything about trading cards. So trading cards is a very niche category. And if you know about it, you really know about it. If you don't know anything. We're going to find somebody to review whether this information is correct from Hayabusa Ryu trading cards game. Not really. So that's where fact-checking, which is very expensive, comes in 10 cents a piece. So don't do it on your whole data. Sample your data and do it. So quickly to wrap up, that's what our workflow we want. That's what it looks like now. We use tools. We use automatic evals, and we use tools for domain-specific feedback. That's what we're recommending. Short of time, let's go to key learnings. I don't know about you guys, but I started with a data set of thousands of items. I keep hearing this LLM does not need that much data, but I keep doing it. So that was, I think, relearned. Start with a smaller set of data, 10, 100, 500,000. and do tiered evals with it. You can do heuristic evaluation on all of it. You can do on a sample of it LLM-based evaluation, and so forth. You cannot find domain experts to do hundreds of thousands of data. You need to sample your data. You need to develop your thresholds. You won't get your thresholds. These are all comparative, relative, and then you need to revise your evals. Evaluate your evals. Evals are also prompts, something repeating from the unit testing community, and adopt tools. Thanks. That's it for me. Teo, can you take us to adopt tools?
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, JD. And so JD brought a lot of really good points up that hopefully I can kind of capitalize on for the audience here. So because of the kind of, I guess, the demographic of the conference, we were hoping to give something both more like actionable for you guys, because for us, open source was a main contributor to the success of our projects, both with the technologies as well as the community feedback and like advice. And so we wanted to give back through this talk with some more hands-on, potentially like suggested ways of doing this. What does it look like from the ground floor? And again, to get to scale, really our claim is just that if you have really good evals and really good tools, and your tools don't need to be really complicated either. And the tools are there to support a specific workflow. Again, in any GenAI application, generally it's targeted toward a specific audience. So you're going to need an SME to, at the end of the day, tell you what is good and what isn't, and you need to work with them to develop good evals. And the developers, actually, they need tools to both build the application and to build in good heuristic evaluations, custom metrics like semantic similarity, Japanese English language, things like this, while working hand in hand with the SMEs. And in our experience, we found that there's two categories of tools for both demographics in one place, so they can iterate independently but in lockstep, and then finally come together to achieve alignment between these metrics that everyone has found, and then keep iterating very quickly to deploy to production in hindsight, what should take about a week. And so all the tools that we're going to talk about today, none of them are on this slide. So we really want everyone here to remember, just start simple, don't overcomplicate it, just whatever helps you move faster, whatever your scale is, whatever your team's problems are, and whatever the composition is of your team. So for developers, for version control, you can use Git. I think all of us are familiar with that. You can use JSON blobs for data, for logging the output and input from models, for loops over different models with different evals and prompts. For SMEs, you can use spreadsheets. This is how we started. You can maybe develop some simple UIs in-house for human feedback. There's a lot that are actually even outside of the people on this stage, the rest of our team, spent a lot of time doing this, and this was a big win. This took a week to do with like ChatGPT or something, and so start here. But when these aren't scoped to your problem, when you need more, then here, this is what we used. So on the dev side, we used weights and biases weave, as JD alluded to earlier. Again, just to solve this problem of, can I just, in a few lines of code, do stuff? And so it touches on these main points of an MVP, observability, reproducibility, just to know what went wrong and where to move quickly, and then an easy way to add evals and to monitor that over time. I'm going to just breeze through this really quickly, but you have facilities to just try prompt A, prompt B against different models, and then you can compare between those different models and say, okay, well, what changed? And so you can have observability in both your input and your output, in addition to prompt management, so versioning. In this case, if I ran like 1 million runs, but I didn't change the prompt at all, I really only want a version 1 prompt because that's the only thing that didn't change at all throughout those runs. Same thing with code. Maybe the code changed. Maybe it's your pre-processing logic. You want facilities for that as well. And then data set management. For the data-centric part of the application development, you want to know exactly what's going into your model to really debug. The data is a place, a very high leverage place to spend a lot of your time. And because of the fact that it gives you all of these facilities to make it really easy, you can iterate really quickly. So in 2 weeks, you can have 22,000 or more runs, and runs that you can now track over your evaluations of, oh, I had model A, B, and C with some parameters. These are the metrics that changed. Here are some fancy numbers to know what went up, what went down. Qualitatively, what was the prompt output for each of these different models with that same input on that data set that we tracked earlier, and then all of the runs and trials things, just to, again, scalable, to scale development both up and out for our team. And because of the fact that iterating quickly, again, in our experience, was success. So we had something where, oh, it's 2 o'clock, right? I said something and said, oh, here are some pictures of some evals. 5 minutes later on Slack, the EM says, oh, that's great. I see exactly what's happening. Let's move forward in this way. It's that same night, I said, yeah, I did the thing you said. The evals don't look quite right. Oh, just kidding. A few minutes later, because I have all that reproducibility, all the tracking, I can say, I messed up. The evals look great. Oh, I found a reason why we had that one bug. Some input, output looked kind of funky. Again, on Slack at night, our EM can just say, oh yeah, that looks good. Let's work on this tomorrow. And so this is like in action what iterating quickly and succeeding looks like in a team base. And for SMEs, it's very similar. So we used a bespoke tool in-house that we can't show today, but our partners at Citadel Lens, they actually have a really great UI-based tool for SMEs that we think really exemplifies what a best practices ideal workflow should look like for them. And so again, you want something where SMEs can start with built-in metrics. They don't need to be developers. They can create manual metrics based on their own kind of insights, custom metrics for LLM judges based on templates, and then continually refine them over time. Speaking of over time, I'm up on time, but just for some pretty pictures, you can see exactly what their workflow would look like, and it makes it really easy for them to develop. So we want to tell the audience to start with strong foundations, whatever those are, observability, reproducibility for quick iteration, and then evals all the way through. There's a whole open source section here that I can't get into, unfortunately, but if anyone's interested, take a look at the slides. And thank you to the rest of our team. There's a huge team that went into this, and the open community that kind of was the impetus for a lot of the work that we've done here.
Can I jump in here? Credits to Adam and Andre for the first prompt. Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, then it's okay. Adam and Andre for the most work at the first prompt that we developed, and of course everybody else as well. Thank you.
Now, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
everyone.